Okay, I'm going to get started this morning. Welcome back to all of you guys. Welcome back. Sawadee Krap. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to everyone online who's joining as well. Today we're going to start with meditation, just like we do each morning of our class. I'll do some chanting. You guys are welcome to join in. Now that you guys have learned that, you can join in the chanting. Then we're going to have the guidance where there's a period of time where I'm going to be guiding you in the meditation. Then it'll just be quiet where we're all meditating together, everyone here and those of you guys online. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then I'm going to start the class where I'm going to share with you the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. And in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to know this inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. So this might be the first time that you've actually been exposed to this and learned it. And that's okay, because then you're going to need to refresh your memory with it, because you're not going to be able to learn it once and then just magically implement it perfectly from the very beginning. You're going to need to gradually learn it and gradually implement it in your life. You'll see it's very comprehensive. It's a core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else plugs into. So this is the path to enlightenment. So we're going to take our time this morning gradually walking you through this with our mid-morning break, and this will take us all the way up to lunchtime. And then after lunch, I'm going to teach you guys all the ins and outs of meditation, help you guys to understand breathing mindfulness meditation, all the ins and outs of this, using the words of the Buddha as I'm teaching you today, just like I shared with you guys that it's important to study with the original words of the Buddha. So you guys are going to see that with the Eightfold Path, and even with the meditation, I'm going to help you guys to see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. So then you'll know for yourself. And then you don't believe those teachings. You learn them, reflect on them, and practice them to be able to see the truth for yourself. So if you'd like to join for meditation in the chanting, you're more than welcome to. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwate Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Damang Namasami Supatipano Mahakawato Savakasangko Sanghang namami. Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso mahakawa arahang samma sambuddho vicacaranang sammuno sakato rokawitu anutero purisa dhamma sati satatawa manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Potang Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatava Manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone this morning. Welcome to everyone online as well. I'm going to be sharing this topic with you of the Eightfold Path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. Remember what enlightenment is. It's where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of this is eliminated from the mind through purification of the mind. And it's the Eightfold Path that's going to guide you in how to accomplish that. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind will be focused, you'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because your mind will be performing optimally because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that cause it to experience the opposite of that. You've eliminated the 10 fetters by the time you get to enlightenment, those 10 pollutions. And then you'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile any longer like you were in the unenlightened state. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood by the time you get to enlightenment. So this Eightfold Path is something that you're going to need to know inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. We're going to study this with the original words of the Buddha. The way you might think about this Eightfold Path is it's like a speaker system, that if you had a speaker system and you had 8 dials that you were tweaking in order to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, that's going to help you to be able to now hear a better sound out of the speakers. Where the same thing is true about the human mind, that you can tweak each one of these 8 dials, bring these in closer and closer to your life, and you'll notice that your mind's performing more and more optimally. It starts with right view. And then when you learn right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I'm going to walk you through each one of these. It's organized into 3 sections. wisdom, moral conduct, and then mental discipline. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. Everything else that he taught plugs into this in one way or another. Right view is on the bottom because this is a foundation. With understanding right view, you can then build everything else on top of this. What right view is the Four Noble Truths, where the Buddha explains in 4 simple statements what is the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And remember, when you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that you don't believe any of these teachings, that you learn, examine, and investigate them, you reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you practice them. That's what's going to help you to be able to cultivate the wisdom. So I'm going to show you how to do that with this entire Eightfold Path, how to learn it, reflect on it, and then practice it. As we go, you guys know that you can ask questions. I'm going to pause a few times, and we have microphones here in the white bowl you guys are welcome to use. That way the people online will be able to hear you. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So these are the words of the Buddha on right view, this step of right view, or this factor of right view on the Eightfold Path. Because remember, you're always interested in studying with the original words of the Buddha. You'd be surprised. There's so many resources out there that people are reporting that they're from the Buddha, but they're actually not his teachings. And it's very misleading. So you need to get back to the original words of the Buddha to be able to see what did he actually teach. So what he's teaching here on right view is he's saying, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. So what he's doing here in the Eightfold Path is he's pointing to one of his other teachings. He's saying, that over there, that is right view. What he's pointing to is the Four Noble Truths. He's not explaining the Four Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path because the Four Noble Truths is a separate teaching. I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths underneath of this line so you can draw the comparison and you can see the connection between what he's teaching in right view and as part of the Eightfold Path and what he's teaching in the Four Noble Truths. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths so you can understand what is right view. And in order to teach you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first teach you the 3 universal truths. These are referred to as truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true as well. But in order for you to get the benefit, you're going to need to know that they're true. And that's why you don't believe what it is that I'm going to share with you. What the Buddha is going to be teaching you is the way the world is, not the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is, and that with that wisdom, now you can navigate the world more peacefully. So I'll show you guys how this works, where you can learn, reflect, and practice, starting with this first universal truth, because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. You wouldn't understand the Four Noble Truths if you didn't understand these. So the first one is called the universal truth of impermanence. What the Buddha is explaining to you here is that the world is impermanent, that it's constantly changing, that things arise, they change, and they fade away. These are called conditioned objects. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. This is a universal truth that everything around you is constantly changing. Anything in the material world is a conditioned object. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. They are actually permanent. So the natural laws themselves that the Buddha described 2,500 years ago, they are permanent. They are unconditioned objects. Enlightenment itself is unconditioned. Once you get to enlightenment, you can never experience discontent feelings ever again because it's an unconditioned mental state where there's no condition that is producing it. So it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. That's what an unconditioned object is, that it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. Where conditioned objects will arise, change, and fade away. So everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, these are all conditioned objects. They are impermanent. Okay, so now that's the little bit of intellectual understanding, a little bit of learning about the universal truth of impermanence. But now you don't believe this. You need to move it into reflection to be able to see the truth for yourself. So you need to look around the world to be able to determine if what I'm sharing with you is true. This is your independent verification. You need to be able to see, is what I'm sharing the truth? Is there anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, touch with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that are permanent? So now I'll invite you to take a look at this. I suggest you start with something that you're familiar with, like this human body. Ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning it's exactly the same and it never changes, or is the body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? What would you say? Is a body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, this physical body has been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, our skin complexion changes, our hair color changes, we get wrinkles, moles, pimples, our teeth grow in, that's change. Then they fall out, that's change. Then they grow in again, that's change. We get cavities, that's change. Our hair grows long, and then we cut it, and then that's change, right? This body is constantly changing. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life, your entire life. Or if your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People are coming and going in and out of your life all the time. You have different people that come and go. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? Did I hear impermanent? Somebody say impermanent. Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, down, down. This is constant change. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? So we can go on and on and on here. And if that's what you need to do, that's what you should do. Walk around the world and look at the world, and you can see that everything around you is constantly changing. There's green leaves in the tree, and there's brown ones on the ground, right? That's change. There are certain planks in the wood floor of the temple. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, some of them are different colors, different textures. We have certain people in the class today that weren't here yesterday, and there were certain people that were here yesterday that aren't here today, right? That's constant change. Everything is constantly changing around you. This is a fundamental building block that you need to be able to understand in order to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. When you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that's impermanence. That's change. Here in Thailand, some sidewalks are flat. Some of them, go up and down like this. Some streets have sidewalks. Some streets don't. This is constant change. You're going to be experiencing this all throughout your life. So this is a fundamental building block to help you understand what's going on in the unenlightened mind. Then the second the second universal truth is called discontentedness. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. If you studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might have used the word suffering here. But I'm going to explain to you what the Buddha taught here, and then I'll explain to you why I don't use the word suffering. So the word that's in the original Pali text is called dukkha, and this translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. When the Buddha is describing this, he talks about three feelings. He's describing the unenlightened mind, that the unenlightened mind experiences pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. These are conditioned feelings that based on some condition, the mind is then going to experience pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. And then, based on some condition, the mind is going to experience a painful feeling, sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's quite painful for them, so you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a great example of this, that it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or perhaps you are on public transportation and say that somebody you didn't know came and sat really, really close to you and their body was touching yours and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind is kind of uncomfortable and dissatisfied in that situation. So these are the three feelings that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. And these are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you're then going to experience this feeling. So for example, if you look outside and it's sunny outside and you get really, really happy, the condition is that when it's sunny, the mind is now experiencing happiness. Or if you look at your bank account balance and now you see the bank account balance is up here, you might get really happy based on that condition. But then what happens is that condition changes and now it's raining, and that's where the mind experiences the painful feeling based on that condition, right? And now when the bank account balance goes down here, now there's a conditioned feeling of anger or sadness or frustration or whatever it is that an individual might experience. These are called conditioned feelings based on the condition of somebody you don't know coming and sitting close to you on public transportation, and now your body's touching their body. Based on that condition, the mind now experiences a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. So this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. So for example, the unenlightened mind, an individual might wake up in the morning and see it's sunny outside and be like, oh, this is great. It's sunny outside. I'm going to go hiking today. I've been wanting to go on this hiking trail for so long, and I'm going to call my friends and we're going to go have a really good time. We're going to go hiking on this trail. Oh, this is so great. And now you go take a shower and you get a shower and then you come outside and it's raining and you're like, oh, it's raining. I can't go hiking today. Now you're frustrated and angry and agitated, right? This is what an unenlightened being experiences, conditioned feelings. The mind goes up and then it comes back down, right? An enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. They're already joyful. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to experience that. They're already happy and joyful. They see it's sunny outside. Oh, sweet. It's sunny outside. I'm going to go hiking with my friends today. This is going to be a blast. Let me go take a shower, right? And now you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining. And it's like, oh, it's raining. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to stay home and read a book, or maybe I'll go to the mall, or maybe I'll invite my friends over to have some food. You can maintain your joy. You can maintain your happiness because it wasn't based on a condition. You're experiencing unconditioned mental qualities. So while this is what the mind is experiencing in the unenlightened state, conditioned feelings, in the unenlightened state, you've eliminated the mind forming conditioned feelings, where your mind is now experiencing unconditioned mental qualities, where you're beyond these conditional feelings. Your mind is now experiencing the peace and the joy, the brightness, the radiance, the cheerfulness, the gladness, and you can maintain that mental state all throughout your day. That there's no condition that is producing it, so therefore it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. It's unconditioned. So this is what the unenlightened mind experiences, these conditioned feelings. But remember, you can't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you. You need to independently verify it for yourself. Because what the Buddha is talking about here is how the mind's shaken up. Even with those pleasant feelings, the mind is shaken up in that situation. It's unsteady, it's uncalm, right? So you know that your mind is unenlightened. So ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience these three feelings? Are there any feelings that you experience that doesn't map into one of these three? And when we get to the question period, I'll be able to help you to be able to understand this. You need to be able to see that the pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. You're going to see this in the Four Noble Truths, that the pleasant feelings, if you allow your mind to have the pleasant feelings of conditional pleasant feelings, then the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. Because if you get so happy and excited when you get that brand new job, well, 5 years later, when the company goes out of business or you get fired or laid off, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. Because if your mind can only be happy when this condition is being met, that condition is not permanent and it's going to change. And now your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So the enlightened mind is beyond this, where it can just be peaceful and joyful and happy all the time, but it's unconditioned. There's no condition that needs to be met in order for it to be able to experience that. So these pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones and the neither painful nor pleasant. So that's why I don't use the word suffering here, because the Buddha is not talking about suffering. He's talking about discontentedness. He's talking about an unsteady, unstable, a mind that's shaken up. If you've ever been so excited that you tripped and fell, or you dropped something and broke it, you know what I'm talking about, that the mind's shaken up during this period of time, that the mind's discontent, experiencing discontentedness. Some people use the word suffering here to describe this, but that explains the painful feelings really, really well, right? That only explains 33% of what the Buddha was teaching here. It doesn't explain the pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. Like if your boss came in and gave you a raise and said, hey, I'm going to give you $20,000 a year more money in your paycheck, and you got excited about that, conditional excitement, would you say you were suffering? Or if your mom called you up and said, hey, I'm going to come visit you. I heard you got a new house, and I know there's that special recipe that I've been making for you ever since you were a kid, and you really enjoy that food. I thought I'd come over and make some food for you this weekend. And you got really excited about that. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. Or if there was someone you didn't know came into the bus and sat close to you and your body was touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. So the word suffering only explains the painful feelings. It doesn't explain the pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant. And you need to be able to see that this is the entire problem that the Buddha is describing, where the mind's going up and down and up and down. It's not steady and stable. It can't be bright and cheerful and uplifted in an unconditioned mental state. It needs a condition in order to experience these feelings. So this is the problem. And if you were missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal? So that's why the word suffering isn't the best word to use here. So I would encourage you to use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because it's going to bring your mind to understand the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that the Buddha is talking about that are experienced in the unenlightened state. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. The universal truth of non-self is actually a solution to one of the pollutions of mind that the Buddha discovered. Yesterday, we were talking about the 10 fetters. If you remember, we were talking about those 10 individual pollutions in the mind. The very first one is called personal existence view, where the mind is clinging to this body or this self-image or the mind or the self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person. This universal truth of non-self is actually the solution to that. So I'm going to explain a little bit more this problem that the Buddha discovered, this pollution, so then we can talk about the solution, which is the universal truth of non-self. The personal existence view is where the mind has the confusion or the misunderstanding that this body is you or this mind is you, this self-image or this self-identity. And now the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. And it can only be happy when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. So, for example, if you ever went somewhere in a social situation and you spilled something on your clothing and you were embarrassed in that situation, that's your personal existence view. Because the mind wasn't being perceived the way that it wanted to be perceived, so it experienced that feeling of embarrassment, that conditioned feeling. Or if you ever looked in the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view. It's clinging to this body, wanting this body to be permanent and wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Or if you ever stood in front of your closet and you thought about, who am I going to see today and how do I want to look? And now you're putting on different clothing in order to be able to go out into the world, and you didn't feel comfortable going out into the world until this body looked a certain way. And I gave you guys that example about when I was a child, how I used to take gel and mousse and run it through my hair and try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I used to do this sometimes so long that I'd miss the school bus because I didn't feel comfortable going outside until I had every little hair in exactly the right spot. This is the personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Then there's the self-identity. You're culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, job or occupation, or any number of things that your mind can cling to of who you think you are as a person. And now you can only be comfortable if you're being perceived in a certain way. So for example, you might have the identity of I am American, or I am Canadian, I am Thai, I am Icelandic, I am Chinese, I am Polish. Any of this I am a Brit, right? Any of this I am in your mind, you might cling to that as who you think you are as a person. But now when you're at a restaurant and two tables over, somebody's saying something very fond, very positive about what it is that you are holding in your mind as an identity, and you'll think that they're talking about you. If they say all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle, you're like, wow, they're talking about me. And you get all these pleasant feelings and you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But now, two tables over, somebody's saying something degrading or negative or disparaging about any kind of identity that you're holding in your mind. And now you're going to be frustrated or angry or irritated. They might say, all Thai people are blah, blah, blah. All Canadians are blah, blah, blah. All Brits are blah, 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 right? They might talk really negatively. And now you feel this anger and frustration in your mind because you're holding on to that identity of who you think you are as a person. Or say you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe when you guys first got together, maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, husband or wife, you adopted this identity of I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when you guys were together, there was a certain amount of comfort with that. But then when you guys broke up, your mind didn't identify with I am single. And maybe you felt uncomfortable in that situation. And now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. The mind thought that was the way to solve this uncomfortableness, but that's not the way to solve it. Or maybe you were doing a job or occupation, and maybe you identified with I am a police officer. And now when you were doing that job, you felt great. But then when you got laid off or you got fired or you got injured or you retired, maybe you feel like less of a person. You didn't feel whole anymore. Now you're driving this taxi being all disgruntled because the mind thinks I am a police officer. So there's any number of things that your mind can cling to as who you think you are as a person. There was one time a student who called me right after COVID and they said, David, I really need your help with something. I said, okay, sure. What do you got? They said, after COVID, I feel very uncomfortable going into certain places where they're wanting me to tip. I used to not need to be confronted with this, but after COVID, they started using these touchless payment systems. And I would go into places before and I would just order a coffee. I would give them my cash. They would give me my change back and I would be on my way. But now they turn around this computer screen and it has, touchless payment, and there's a tipping thing there. And they asked me if I want to tip, 15%, 25%, 30%. And he said, I am a great tipper, but I don't tip in these situations because I'd spend 30 seconds giving them my order. They spend 1 minute making my drink and they give it back to me. I don't think I need to tip. I am a great tipper, David, but I feel so uncomfortable in this situation when I don't tip. What is going on here? Why do I feel so uncomfortable? And I said, that's your personal existence view. You're holding on to the identity of I am a great tipper. And when you're tipping, you feel comfortable, you feel great. But when you don't tip, you're feeling uncomfortable because your mind's personal existence view is being triggered. You're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived. So your mind can cling to any number of things of who you think you are as a person. It can cling to this self-image or this self-identity. And now you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived by others in the way that you want to be perceived. So what the Buddha teaches you here is that there is no self. That this self that the mind wants to cling to and think that this is who you are, this is not you. This body is not permanent. The mind is not permanent. Things are constantly changing. And as soon as you cling to something and think this is who you are, you're sabotaging your ability to be permanently peaceful and permanently joyful, because it's only a matter of time before all that stuff changes and people don't perceive you the way you want to be perceived. Sometimes people have this so deeply that they will go to their family in their home country and they will say, Mom, Dad, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to leave. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. In fact, some of you guys might be doing that here because people will say, I'm going to go to Thailand and find myself, right? And now they come to Thailand and they spend some time here, and then they get to a point where they're like, I found myself. I know who I am again. And they go back home and they maybe have found a new job or new friends, new hobbies, new activities. And they say, Mom and Dad, I found myself. I know who I am again. But none of that stuff is you, because as soon as all that stuff changes, you're going to be right back in the same situation where you don't know who you are anymore. And the problem here is that we've been accumulating this all throughout our life. Ever since we were born, we were all given labels. Right? I don't know all of your labels, but the label that I was given was David. Right? This was the label that we were given. And now there's certain personality, certain character, certain way of being that gets assigned to that. And now we started accumulating that. Or if we grew up in a certain country, our government and the people around us might have adopted the idea of I am a Brit, I am Chinese, I am American, I am Canadian. And now we have flags, we have national anthems, we have sports teams, and we cheer and cheer and cheer for those because I am American and I should cheer for the American team, right? That's the way that the mind typically is brought up. And that's what helps the personal existence view to get firmly rooted in the mind. So the Buddha is teaching you that none of this is you. This is not who you are as a person. People can even do this with their choices and decisions. Let's say in the past you used to use drugs and alcohol, and now maybe 10 years later, you're no longer using drugs and alcohol, but you might have been taught to think, I am an alcoholic, or I am an addict. Right? This is an identity that sometimes people adopt within their own mind. That's not true, because there's no I here. This being might have chose to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but that doesn't define who I am as a person today. Just because I made choices and decisions to use drugs and alcohol in the past doesn't make me an alcoholic or make me an addict. And I understand why people teach this, because it's helpful to make sure that you don't ever go back to the substances. But you can choose to do that without adopting the identity of I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, because that's where the guilt and the shame comes in. Oftentimes people feel guilty and shameful for those kinds of things. So it's a matter of understanding, for example, that this body was born on a land that is referred to as America, but I don't have to adopt the identity of I am American. I don't need to hold that in my mind of who I am as a person. So what you ultimately need to be able to do is strip away the personal existence view and realize non-self. Realize that this body is not you, this mind is not you. There is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, and we refer to that as a person, but it doesn't define who you are. That this body is going to be constantly changing, and the roles that you fulfill, whether you're a police officer or a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or girlfriend, these are going to be constantly changing. So as soon as you allow your mind to grab onto any of these things, when they change, you'll be very uncomfortable. So the Buddha helps you to be able to see that there is no self. It's called the universal truth of non-self. But now you don't believe this. Right? This is just a little bit of the intellectual learning. And some people understand it when I first start talking about it like this, and some people don't. It's okay, because I've seen some people take upwards of a year to understand this. But let me help you to show you how to independently verify that there is no self. And then over time, you're going to need to get closer and closer to realizing non-self, where your mind strips away the identity of thinking that this body is you, or that this identity that you're holding on to in the mind is you. So think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about your character, your personality, and how you viewed yourself. Has it been exactly the same through all those 4 phases of your life? Say no, right? Your childhood, your teenage years, your early adulthood, and now you haven't viewed yourself the same way. You can see that this is constantly changing, right? Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? She says no. What do you guys say? If you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? No, right? So here you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, because otherwise you would have answered that question differently. If this body is you, then if there's less body, there's less you. But when I asked you the question, if your arm is amputated, are you less of a person? You said, no, I'm not less of a person, right? So intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, but in the heat of the moment, the mind's confusion, that's what personal existence view is. The mind's confusion, the lack of wisdom. The mind thinks that this body is you, because when somebody says something either positively or negatively about this body, you are going to experience feelings about that, conditioned feelings. Here's a third way that you can independently verify that there's no self. Point to yourself. Where are you? Are you able to point? Okay, she's pointing here. Anyone else? Where are you? Okay, yeah, some people point here, right? So if you're pointing here and you say, I am here, you need to be able to look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. Is that who you are? That shirt that you're wearing? If we took off the shirt and we held it up in the air and pointed to it, is that you? Is that who you are? That's not you, right? Okay, so throw away the shirt. Where are you? Someone might point again. And now what are you pointing to? You're pointing to skin. Is that who you are? That skin that you've got there? Is that you? If we took off the skin and we held it up and pointed to it, is that you? That's not you. So we throw away the skin. Where are you? And someone might point again, right? You've got muscle tissue, you've got bones, you've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you, and none of them are you collectively. But the mind's going to cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are. And that's the confusion that the mind has. That's why that's a pollution. That's the personal existence view. And as long as that pollution is in the mind, then you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy. Because if someone says something agreeable to you or disagreeable to you, you're going to have a conditioned feeling based on that. That's the personal existence view. This universal truth of non-self helps you understand that there is no you. But then there's tools and techniques to help you eradicate this. This is just an introduction to it. In the future, you're going to learn about how to eliminate that from the mind. Okay? So this is the three universal truths. Do you guys have any questions on any of these? Yes, ma'am.
So if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, who am I?
Yeah, this is a common question. What the mind's doing is it's still grasping. That's where that question comes from. If I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, then what am I? The mind wants to grab onto something and say, this is me. And as soon as you allow your mind to grab onto something and say, this is who you are, as soon as that changes, you're going to feel uncomfortable. So for example, at one time I was an IT professional. That's my mind, right? IT professional. I left that and then I opened my own businesses. I am an entrepreneur, right? And now ultimately I got to the point where I'm sharing these teachings of the Buddha. I am a Buddhist teacher, right? I am not a Buddhist teacher. That's not who I am. Other people might look at him and say, oh, that guy teaches the teachings of the Buddha. He is a Buddhist teacher. Well, my mind doesn't have to adopt that identity, because even though I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, it is going to come to an end. It's not permanent. So it's a matter of fulfilling roles and doing the things in your life without allowing your mind to adopt that as who you are. So, but the mind's going to keep trying to grasp and grasp and grasp and try to find out, who am I? And that's where the mind will get confused, because as soon as you grab onto something and you say, this is you, that's going to change. And you can see that that's not who you are. Mm-hmm.
Can we then say we are consciousness?
Nope.
We are soul?
Nope. As soon as you grab on.
Okay, there are no words to describe. Well, what is the description of Buddha?
There's no you there. That's what the Buddha says. There is no you there. All I see is I see fabric, I see skin, I see hair. right? This is helping you also not only to eliminate your own discontentedness, but it also helps you to not be judgmental of other people. When you see certain skin colors, certain hair colors, certain social status, or all those kinds of things, you don't look down on people and you don't look up to people. Instead, you can just understand that this is a human being, but the mind's going to keep trying to grab onto something. And it's important to remember that the Buddha never taught that there is a soul or there isn't a soul. He never taught this. This isn't part of his teachings. And he says very clearly, and you can independently verify the more you peer into this, that there is no you there. It's just tissue. That's all it is. That's all it is. Mm-hmm.
So are you a human being?
You're not even interested in grabbing onto that. I'll repeat it so people can hear it. The question was, are you a human being? This configuration of material objects, somebody would refer to and say that is a human being. We can understand that that is a human being without allowing your mind to adopt that identity within your mind, right? So I can perform the role of a Buddhist teacher without allowing my mind to adopt the identity of I am a Buddhist teacher, right? Because then when people say something positive or negative about Buddhist teachers, I can be at ease because they're not talking about me, right? There's no me here. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. So while you might say these are human beings, your mind doesn't have to adopt the identity. Because if someone says all human beings are horrible and miserable and blah, 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 they've destroyed the planet, da, da, da. Now, if you identify that way, that's going to cause discontentedness. So it's a matter of understanding that we call this a human being without allowing your mind to adopt that as the identity of who you think you are as a person. That's what's going to help you to be able to get to the peace and joy. Just one part of it. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. If you could get a microphone. Remember, out of all these universal truths, this one is oftentimes the most challenging for people to understand because we've spent so much time accumulating this personal existence view throughout our life. Mm-hmm.
So I get the attachment to these identities and how they're not solid, and then also how our kind of orientation to our own experience like changes over time, like you were saying, like adolescence and childhood and adulthood. But what would you say about personality? Like parents who have two kids, you know, as soon as they're born, they notice that they have very different sort of personalities that seem sort of persistent through their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, you know, how does that like sort of core personality or does that figure in this whole non-self?
Yeah, that's not who you are either, because your personality, it can easily change over time, right? At one time, before I learned these teachings, I was a very different person than I am now in terms of my personality and how I interacted with people. So that's not permanent and it's not who you are. And it's important not to identify with any of that as who you are, because as soon as you identify with that, then that's where you set yourself up for failure. So for example, someone might say, I am hungry. That's not true. That's not true reality because there's no I here. What's true reality is that the body needs food. That's true reality, that the body needs food. Or someone might say, I am angry. No, that's not true because there's no I here. True reality is that the mind is experiencing anger. So when you understand the universal truth of non-self and how personal existence view is plaguing your ability to experience permanent peace and permanent joy, you won't associate with any of these things as who you are, including your personality, including your character, because you know that that is all changing. All of that stuff is changing over time. And as soon as you grab onto any of it and say that this is who you are, when it changes or you hear some kind of agreeable or disagreeable contact related to that, you'll be discontent. So the Buddha is teaching you how to get free of that by not clinging to this body or this mind as who you are, this self-image or self-identity as who you are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I think I'm hearing is that it might be more useful to think of ourselves as just biology, and that our biology is reacting to certain hormones or chemical reactions within ourselves, and that we shouldn't identify with that and just think of ourselves as, I don't know quite what, but beings that are just reacting to things, perhaps.
Yeah, there is nothing here. I mean, you're physically seeing some physical object and you're hearing a sound, right? So there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, and we call that a person. But really what there is there's two consciousness that are talking to each other, right? We're using the body to be able to form sounds and stuff like that, so that this consciousness, this mind, is using this body to make some sounds, and now that sound is traveling over there to those ears, and those ears are now understanding the sounds, and now that consciousness, that mind, is able to understand what it is that this consciousness is really talking about. But none of this is me. None of this is you. It's just things that exist. But it's important to not adopt it as who you think you are as a person. And this takes time for you to be able to understand personal existence view in the solution of the universal truth of non-self. And then there's specific training that you use in order to strip this away. So, for example, this is the reason why the Buddha wore rag robes and he shaved his hair, because he's shedding the craving to go out into the world and be perceived by others in a certain way. He just created a simple appearance rather than wearing rings and jewelry and magnificent clothing and having his hair a certain way. He just shaved off all his hair and wore rag robes, didn't wear any jewelry or anything, so that way the mind can be trained to go out into the world and not be perceived by others in a certain way. Not everybody has to wear rag robes and shave their hair in order to eliminate personal existence view, but that's one of the things that people can do in order to be able to eliminate personal existence view. So there's a lot more learning here on this that I go into in chapter 16. We don't cover it in this foundational course, but in chapter 16 here. So in the group learning program, in the retreat that I'm going to be teaching 2 weeks from now, we go into this in a lot of detail, where not only do we talk about the problem in more detail, but we talk about the solution and how to implement it. We're here in a foundational program. I'm just introducing it to you. And oftentimes students have a lot of trouble to understand it in the beginning like this.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So what the Buddha is teaching you is that there is no you, there is no self here. And it's going to be challenging for you to be able to see that right up front, but there's ability for you to penetrate into it more. So these are just building blocks to now help you to understand the rest. Are there any other questions on any of these? No questions? Okay. So now one more building block, and then I can teach you the Four Noble Truths. This is craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectations, longing, yearning, the mind craving things to be a certain way. The mind is pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has, and it chases. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get those on my feet. Oh, they're going to look so good. And you go inside the store and they have your shoes and you're so excited. Yay. Right. But then you go in the store and they don't have your shoes and now you're frustrated. Right. So this is the longing, the yearning. It's not the object itself. It's not the shoes that are the craving. It's the mind longing, yearning for it, forming its inner feelings based on this thing. You'll see in the Four Noble Truths when we talk about this. So it could be any number of things. It could be a video game. It could be food. It could be even a bottle of water. Like, let's just say I had a bottle of water in my car and I'm on my way to a hike and I'm 30 minutes down the trail. I can be like, oh my gosh, my water, where's my water? And now you run back to your car, you twist your ankle, you sling open your door. Oh, water. You can even have a craving, desire, attachment for water. It's not the water itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind is longing, yearning for it. Okay, do you guys know what I'm talking about here? Have you seen this in your mind, where your mind longs and yearns forming its inner feelings based on some outside condition. This is what the mind does in the unenlightened state. This is an important understanding. It's craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectation. The mind is longing, yearning for something. The mind thinks that this outside thing is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it chases it and chases it and chases it. Okay? So now I'll help you understand the Four Noble Truths. In 4 simple statements, you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing all these feelings in your mind. Because oftentimes people think that it's the outside world that's causing these feelings. You might think it's your mom or dad or brothers or sisters, your boss, that is causing you to be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. But what you're going to be able to see in the Four Noble Truths is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And this is the reason why you can actually eliminate them, because it's actually your own mind that's causing them. If it was other people that was causing these feelings, you'd never be able to eliminate them. So the first noble truth is explaining the problem that the Buddha discovered, that everyone in the unenlightened state will experience discontentedness. That's the problem you're experiencing, that your mind's going up and down and up and down. You're happy and excited, and then you're frustrated and agitated or annoyed, but then you're bored and lonely and shy and embarrassed and disappointed. Sure, you've got some peace here and there in the middle, but over time, throughout your days and your weeks and your months, your mind's going up and down and up and down. That's the problem that the unenlightened mind is experiencing, these conditioned feelings. Those conditioned feelings of pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant is the problem. The cause of that problem is in the second noble truth. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'll say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples so you can see this. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, wanting things to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. So here's some examples for you. Think back to maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, you might have been so happy and so excited. You've got this new person in your life. They're showing you affection. They're inviting you to the movies, to dinner. You're going to the park and having great conversations as you're walking around the park. Maybe you're having intimate contact like sex and things like this. And there's all this pleasure in the relationship. You're experiencing all these pleasant feelings because the mind's getting its craving fulfilled. That when the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. But then over time, the relationship deteriorates and you start getting angry and frustrated and agitated at this person. And now you guys might break up. And then when you break up, you might be really angry, really frustrated, maybe lonely or bored. You might be missing this person. This isn't your love that's causing that. That's the mind having craving, desire, attachment. It's holding on, wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, this relationship is impermanent. It was never going to be permanent. Ever since the beginning of the relationship, it was impermanent, because more likely than not, even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, one of you are going to die first, right? But the mind craves permanence, wanting these relationships to be permanent. You can see this if you've had someone close to you that has died, like grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, or others, that as long as they're alive, the mind's getting what it wants. So there's a certain amount of happiness. It's getting conditioned, pleasant feelings. But then when they die, the mind doesn't understand impermanence. It doesn't understand that everybody around you is impermanent, and the mind's craving permanence. And now there's grief and sorrow and despair. You're not a bad person that this is occurring. This is what every being who's ever been born has experienced. This is the unenlightened mind and what it experiences. As long as grandma and grandpa's alive, the mind's happy. But then when they die, the mind is not happy with that. It's grieving and sorrow and sad. You can see this if you've been to a wedding. Maybe you've been to a wedding and you saw people grieving and sorrowful at a wedding. There's somebody going off into the world in a new relationship, and mom and dad and brothers and sisters and other people are crying and grieving. Well, the reason why is because their mind's holding on and craving permanence. And now here goes brother or sister off into the world with somebody else. And it's like, that's my brother and sister. That's my son. That's my daughter. Right? And the mind doesn't understand that this person is not permanent. They are impermanent. Because if it's love, when they go off into the world with someone else, they'd be like, wow, that's wonderful. They've got a new relationship. They're going to start a new life with somebody else. This is wonderful, right? Or think back to when you were a child and you got dropped off at school, maybe grade school or university. You and or your parents might have been crying and grieving during this period of time because the mind thought that mom and dad were permanent, and the mind was holding on and craving permanence. And the parents were doing the same thing. They were holding on and craving permanence. And now here's this child going off into the world on their own. And now there's grieving and there's sadness. Well, if it's love, love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Your kid's going off to school to get an education. Wow, this is really great. This is wonderful, right? But that's not what the mind does. The mind grieves oftentimes because it's holding on and craving permanence, right? Here's an example that doesn't involve relationships. This might actually help you to see it more closely. Think about if you bought a brand new car. Maybe there's a brand new car that you just have this dream car. You've always wanted this car. You saved up your money for 5 or 10 years and you finally bought this car. And now you drive it off the parking lot of the dealership and people are like, wow, look at him. He's so successful. Wow, look at her. She's so successful. And you're proud driving your car down the street and you get to a store and you park the car and you go inside. And now when you come outside, there's a scratch on your car. Oh my gosh, you might be so frustrated or angry or irritated. It's not the scratch that's causing the frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the frustration is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting things to be permanent. It's craving this car to be permanently beautiful when that's not possible. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise here, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And if you have a craving for permanence, when all of this change is happening, your mind's not going to like that. And now it's going to be angry or frustrated or irritated, right? So I could give you example after example after example to help you be able to see this. But in order for you to be able to see it, you've got to see it in your own life. So I'm going to invite you to take a look at your own life. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry or irritated or annoyed. It could have been this morning or yesterday or maybe last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, because what I'm sharing with you is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you need to be able to see it for yourself. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for, that you were craving? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, the mind was irritated or annoyed or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. If you have difficulty seeing this, let me know, and I will help you to be able to see it, because I've had plenty of students that needed help over the years. There's this one student that contacted me one time, and she called me up and she said, you know, David, I'm having a real problem. I know that you teach that my mind is causing these discontent feelings, but I think that my wife caused these feelings. I was like, really? What happened? She said, well, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. I came home after a hard day of work and she had a craft project all over the house. And I walked in and I got frustrated right away. Didn't she cause me to be angry? Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? I wasn't even there. How did I cause my mind to be frustrated? I was like, oh, well, you were craving permanence. You had an expectation that your house was going to look exactly the same when you came home. The only thing that you experienced was change. That's it. But your mind was craving permanence. And now with this craft project all over the house, that was impermanence, and your mind didn't like that. That's what caused the frustration, right? So you need to be able to see this through your own experience. When you get so excited, you just can't wait to go to Thailand. Oh, I can't wait to get there. It's going to be so awesome. And you show up to the airport and your flight's delayed or canceled. Now you might have frustration or irritation or annoyance. That's the mind craving permanence. I want every single airplane to take off as scheduled on time, especially the ones you're on, right? That's the craving for permanence. But the world is impermanent. There's going to be weather issues, maintenance issues, crew issues. That is impermanence. So you need to be able to see this in your own life, because you can have a breakthrough to understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out fights with people where you've tried to argue and tell them that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry. All this is impermanence. They might have been doing something unwise, but that's not what's causing you to be angry. What's causing you to be angry is your craving for permanence. The mind wants everybody to do things this way. And if they do it that way, you'll be happy. But if they do it this way, you'll be angry or frustrated. And what the mind does when it's experiencing this anger and frustration is it can oftentimes become unskillful. What the mind will tend to do is it'll tend to push people away, or it'll push the situation away, because the mind perceives that this anger, these painful feelings are coming from something external. So it thinks the way to solve that is to push this person away or push this situation away. You might have done this. It's called aversion, where you're pushing away this thing, thinking that if I just get this thing out of my life, then I can be happy, right? But that's not true. Because you can see that your mind is not happy. It still gets angry. It still gets frustrated. If this person was the true cause of your discontent feelings, when you push them out of your life, you'd be happy from that point forward because you just solved your problem. But you can see that that's not the case. So you might have pushed away friends or family. Or when someone doesn't understand that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these discontent feelings, when they don't understand the second noble truth, they'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through their intentions, their speech, and their actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. It's the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled, that it wants this person to do things this way, and when it does it this way, it doesn't like it, and it tries to fear this person into doing it this way. That's the anger and the hostility and the bitterness. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people and try to control people and pressure people and force them to do things your way. That's the craving, the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. And as long as you're doing this, where you're pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people, you can't live harmoniously with all beings. It's not possible, because it's only a matter of time before someone does something differently than you. Oftentimes, the mind can only like people when they do things your way, when they meet your expectations. But when they don't do things your way, you'll dislike them. That dislike is coming from your own mind because your expectations aren't getting met. The mind's craving permanence. I want everybody to do things this way. And as long as they do it this way, I'll be happy. But if somebody does it this way, then you won't be happy. That's the mind craving permanence. And now the mind will dislike that person and either push them away, be bitter, harsh, or hostile, or put expectations on people. So you can have a real breakthrough here today to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And the beauty in that is that if you can see that, the third noble truth is really straightforward, because the Buddha teaches you that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you can eliminate the way the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection, forming its inner feelings based on whether you get this thing or not, you can actually eliminate your discontentedness. You can get to the point where you're always happy and you're always peaceful, no matter what's happening. So, because if you eliminate the cause, you will eliminate the effect. Right? So up here in the second noble truth, you can see the cause of discontentedness is craving, desire, attachment. So if you eliminate the cause, then you will eliminate the discontentedness. You can independently verify this one too. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you broke up with, that your mind was angry and frustrated, or irritated, or annoyed. At some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to live in another part of the world, so be it. And you let him go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you know what? If she wants to be with somebody else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. As soon as your mind let go, That's where your peace and joy came back. So you need to eliminate this longing, yearning, this craving for permanence. And now your mind can awaken to be peaceful and joyful all the time. The way to do that is in the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to teach you how to train your mind to not long and yearn and chase after things, craving permanence. And when your mind's not doing that, sometimes people think, well, wouldn't I swing all the way to the other side where I'm dull and lethargic and complacent and lazy? Well, you might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you the middle way, where you can pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making. So this Eightfold Path is going to train your mind to not long and yearn and crave and chase after things and form your feelings based on whether you get that thing or not. And it starts with right view. What right view is having the right view of the world, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, it's longing, yearning. Wrong view would be to blame other people. That's what the unenlightened mind does, is it will typically blame other people for the feelings that they're experiencing. And as long as you blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing, you'll never actually solve this. You'll just go around the world constantly blaming other people, trying to change other people. You might have been doing that in your life, trying to change mom and dad, trying to change brothers and sisters, trying to change your life partners, trying to change your children. You can't change other people. Other people need to choose to improve for themselves. But what's causing your anger and frustration is not them. It's the craving for permanence. The mind wants everybody to do it this way. And with the mind's ego, you'll think your way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. And now the mind wants everybody to do it this way. So right view is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And that's the foundation of this, because now you can build everything else on top of it. Because if it was everybody else that was the problem, then why are you here? Why are you looking to learn the teachings of the Buddha? Everyone else should be here. They're the problem, right? That's what the ego is going to make you think. But that's not true. It's within your own mind. And nobody can make you angry. Nobody can make you frustrated. It's actually your own mind. You can look over the entire course of your life, and every single time that you've been angry or frustrated or any other discontent feeling, it's always because of craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, craving permanence, when in reality, the world around you is impermanent. So let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions on right view, this Four Noble Truths. Do you guys have any questions to be able to independently verify any of this? Yes, sir.
So I have kind of like a practical practice kind of question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding discontentedness and wanting things to be permanent, and seeing that it's you causing the sensations of anger. So if it's all right, like a really kind of concrete example. So say I'm at a co-working space and there's like a quiet zone where things are supposed to be absolutely quiet. And there's someone making a lot of noise. So I get that, you know, my anger is coming from a place of wanting this to be a place of permanent silence, of quiet. And so coming up to somebody in a state of anger and frustration probably won't yield good effects. But I guess is the right view here that if I can view it not from that perspective, not from that these other people are causing my anger, but that it's coming from me, and with that awareness, still taking some action to ask someone to be quiet, is that the right approach versus not doing anything in many of these situations in life?
Yeah, there isn't just this black and white of this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way to do it, even though we're using the word right here. One of the ways you might think about it is wise view, wise intention, wise speech. So whether you choose to take action to address that situation or not, that's a choice that you need to make in the present moment based on all the variables. There's no way to give you like a decision tree of if this happens, do that, if this happens, do that, because that would be a permanent answer for every single situation. But whatever you choose to do, whether you choose to just be quiet or whether you choose to leave and go to a different co-working space, or whether you choose to talk to the management and the workers, or whether you choose to talk to that person directly, you'll be able to do that better when your mind's calm and peaceful and you're not blaming other people for whatever you're experiencing, because you can get to the point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful no matter what's happening around you. But whether you choose to take action or not, that's a separate question for you to decide in the moment. And that's where this moral conduct comes into play, that now you can understand wise decision making around, if you're going to address it, how do I do that? And the Buddha is going to give you guidance on how to do that. So what I encourage you guys to do in order to practice this right view now and forever, if you've been able to break through to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, don't blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. When you're experiencing anger, sadness, frustration, no matter what the situation is, any of those discontent feelings, start looking inward to figure out what are the cravings, desires, attachments here? What's the longing, yearning? You need to start being reflective and looking inward. And where you have difficulty seeing this, that's where you reach out to your teacher and you talk with your teacher and you give an example and you say, hey, this is the situation I'm having. Can you help me see what my mind is craving here? And you do this just like you build the skill of meditation through the guidance of a teacher. You need to build the skill to be able to look inward and see what are your cravings, desires, attachments. And if you do this multiple times, eventually you'll have this skill for yourself, because students will usually contact me. That's why I have so many examples to share with you guys of the cravings, desires, attachments that people have. And I need to help them to be able to see their own cravings, desires, attachments. But you need to be able to see it for yourself, because I'm not permanent in your life. I can't tell you all the different cravings that you have. You need to be able to look inward. So if you understand intellectually what right view is, and you've reflected to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, the way you practice this is now and forever, you look inward, be reflective, be introspective to figure out in each situation, what are my cravings, desires, attachments here? And oftentimes there's multiple, especially if you have really strong emotions, there's usually multiple. It's usually not just one, right? So you're going to need to build that ability to look inward. So that would be a practice of right view. So now I'm going to teach you right intention, and each of these don't take the same amount of time as right view. It's just the right view takes a little bit longer because we need to walk you through it. But now we can build on top of this, because once you understand right view, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, now you understand why you're doing the work. Why am I doing this meditation? Why am I doing this training? Because you need to train your own mind to not experience those feelings any longer. So the second factor is called right intention. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So there's three things here that the Buddha is talking about: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is to be willing to let go and give up your false beliefs, ideas, opinions, and views, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome things that you're doing right now in terms of your moral conduct that you're going to need to be willing to let go of and eliminate. And there's also certain false beliefs, false opinions and views that you have in your mind. That's the whole reason why you're experiencing the anger, frustration, sadness, and other things. But you're not eliminating your false beliefs by bringing in new beliefs. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you how to cultivate wisdom. And when you bring in this wisdom and you see this truth, and this wisdom is conflicting with what you believed your whole life, that's where you get rid of your beliefs, and now you have wisdom and you know the truth. The very first false belief that you need to get rid of is the belief that other people are making you angry, that other people are making you frustrated. That's a belief that we oftentimes carry around with us until we understand right view. So that's why this is the very next thing on the path, is to be willing to let go of that false belief. but you're not bringing in a new belief. You need to independently verify that what I share with you in the Four Noble Truths is true. And now this new wisdom, you can see, aha, now I understand. So you're going to need to get rid of many different false beliefs, opinions, and views. And that's why I shared yesterday that you're going to hear things in this course that are very different than what you currently think about the world. I already know that. If you're unenlightened and you're learning the wisdom of an enlightened being, there's going to be things that you don't understand. And that's what you're working to do, is cultivate that wisdom and get rid of these false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, as well as your unwholesomeness. Then there's the intention, of non-ill will. Ill will is bitterness and harshness and hostility. Non-ill will is a double negative, which means goodwill. So you're going to need the intention, the thinking, or the thought. That's how some people refer to this: right thinking, right thought, or right intention of non-ill will, or being disinterested in causing harm to others, where you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility, that you have goodwill for all beings. And then there's the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. You need that intention or thinking or thought, because as long as you're causing harm, harm is going to come back to you. You can't cause other people to be discontent. Just like you cause your own discontentedness, other people are causing their discontentedness too. I'm sure people blame you for their anger and frustration, but you're not the one that's causing it. But you can cause people harm. Causing people harm is to harm their material possessions, their physical body, or their reputation. If you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, when you're causing harm, that harm is going to come back to you. So you need to be disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. That's the right intention, right thinking, or right thought, right? And now from there, you'll see that there's more on the path. But just to kind of summarize what I've taught you so far is right view is the Four Noble Truths, understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, that you need to take responsibility for your own feelings, your own intentions, your speech, and your actions. Oftentimes people will blame this on other people, but you need to accept responsibility for this, because otherwise you're never going to make the decisions to be able to improve that. So that's what right view is looking inward and understanding it's your own cravings, desires, attachments that's motivating these feelings and emotions in your moral conduct as well. Then there's right intention. This is a practice of the right intention, the right thought, the right thinking, of having the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false beliefs, opinions, and views, essentially have an open mind, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that you have right now, that you're treating people in a certain way, and you're going to need to be willing to let that go and eliminate it. Then there's the intention of non-ill will, or goodwill, where you have the intention of goodwill, active goodwill towards others, a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And then there's the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Do you guys have any questions on right view or right intention? No questions? Yeah, you have a question? Yeah.
Sorry, my mind's just gone blank. So we're talking about the Four Noble Truths about, so I had this thought that if we cause offense to people unintentionally, how does that play out? I mean, I think what you're saying is that we can't, in effect, cause someone else to have offense because it's not in our power.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
There's nothing you could say or do that is going to offend me at this point in my life, right? If someone's feeling offended, that's because of their own craving. They're wanting and expecting you to interact with them in a certain way, and they can only be happy if that's the case. So conditional happiness really limits your ability to be happy, because with craving, desire, attachment, the mind's like, I want my friends to do this. I want my parents to do this. I want my boss to do this. I want this much money in my bank account. I want this house, this car. I want the weather to be like this, blah, 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 blah. And then I will be happy. right? So you're shrinking your ability and sabotaging your ability to be happy because all those conditions can't be met permanently. So if you say something that is offensive and someone considers it to be offensive, that's their own mind that's doing that. Now, the Buddha is going to teach you right speech, right action, right livelihood, so you know what is wise to say, because while that person is causing their own anger and frustration, they don't know that. They're thinking that it's you. So the Buddha is going to teach you how to speak in ways and communicate in ways that is harmless, so that you're actually not causing harm to others. And that way, that person's craving is less likely to get triggered. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little break. It's now 10:45. So let's take a break up to 11 o'clock. Give you guys a chance to stretch your legs and use the bathroom and chat with each other. Then when we come back, I'm going to continue on in this Eightfold Path. We're going to move into the moral conduct and the mental discipline. So I'll see you guys in 15 minutes at 11 o'clock. Okay, so thank you for your questions. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going and sharing more with you guys about the Eightfold Path, helping you guys to understand now the moral conduct section, because once you understand right view, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you start to realize the most unwise thing you could do is be bitter and harsh and hostile to people. That's just damaging your relationships. That's the mind trying to be like an animal and try to fear this other being into doing things your way. So that moral conduct, oftentimes people feel justified in their unwise moral conduct, but it's just damaging your relationships. So you can actually improve this. So I'm going to teach you the moral conduct section and the mental discipline section, because the mental discipline is what helps you put into practice the moral conduct. But it's all based on this wisdom of your own mind is causing your own discontent feelings, and you need to have this right intention, right thinking, right thought of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. And now your moral conduct can emanate from that. So whenever you're learning moral conduct from the Buddha, it's important to make sure you understand that what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma. He's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's not trying to convince you to do things his way. Instead, he's helping you to be able to see this natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. Now, some people call this karma, but that's the Sanskrit version. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so people who study those will usually use this word karma. It's pointing to the same thing. It's a natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. Whenever you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. So these teachings that I'm going to share with you on the moral conduct, he's just showing you the natural law of karma so that you can see it for yourself of what would be wise or unwise in any given situation. And he's helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Remember, that's the whole goal of the Eightfold Path, is to help you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So I'm going to show you the teachings that he has here, but remember, you don't believe it. I'm going to show you how to independently reflect on it, because it's your life, your decisions, and your results. And however you treat people through your moral conduct, you're going to experience the results of that coming back to you. So here's right speech. He says, in what monks is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So there's 4 things here that he's talking about that would be wise to eliminate, because they're all based in craving, anger, and ignorance, or unknowing of true reality. Whenever your mind's craving, it's going to produce discontentedness in your mind, and it's going to produce unwholesome results. So whenever somebody's lying, if you can think back to when you were lying as a child, there was some underlying craving that you had. There was a longing, yearning that you had. And your mind felt like, if I told the truth, then I'm not going to get what I want. And I want this thing. So the mind lied in order to be able to try to get what it wants. But the problem with this is that it's unwise, and it's going to produce unwholesome results, because people are going to discover your lies. And when they discover your lies, they're going to see you as being undependable, unreliable, and untrustworthy. And it's going to damage your relationships. So if you can get to the point where you're only speaking the truth, now you can have better relationships, more harmonious relationships. Then there's slander. Slander is also based in craving, desire, attachment. This is like gossip. This is where you're damaging another person's reputation. The mind thinks that I want to look good in front of other people. And if I can make other people look bad, then it'll make me look good. This is the craving, desire, attachment that the mind has. It's kind of like walking into a dark room and everybody has a candle, and you think, well, if I put out everyone else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. So let me put out everybody else's candle. Well, no, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright, right? So going around gossiping and slandering, this is coming from the mind's craving of trying to make other people look bad. And you're going to experience unwholesome results here. Just like with the lying, there's unwholesome results there. If you choose to slander, damaging other people's reputation, at the height of this, you can be murdered, right? There's plenty of people that have experienced that. Remember, the Buddha's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And that if you look at the news, you'll see investigative reporters that'll get on the news and they will slander people. And next thing you know, they'll be dead, right? Again, not sharing with you the way the world should be, but this is the way the world is. If you damage someone's reputation, at the height of this, you can actually be murdered. At the very least, if you're going around gossiping and slandering about people, those people that you're gossiping and slandering to, when your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. It's only a matter of time because you get them used to gossiping and slandering. And now when you turn away, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you don't like people gossiping and slandering about you, then you're going to need to not do that towards other people. And this is based in craving. So this will help you eliminate that, and it'll help you eliminate any harm that you're causing to other people. Then there's harsh speech. Harsh speech is based on your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. If you're speaking harsh and bitter and hostile with people, this is coming from your craving, desire, attachment. The mind has a certain craving. It wants things to be a certain way. And when they're not that way, someone will be harsh and bitter and hostile in order to try to fear that being into doing things your way. That's where the harshness and hostility comes from. So you need to get to the point where you're speaking gently. You're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And some of you guys speak more than one language, so you're going to need to look at that, right? You're going to need to learn how to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. But when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, it's going to be very challenging to do. Because remember, this isn't just snap your fingers and instantly do this today. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that your mind's going to need to be able to do this. And the mental discipline that I'm going to teach you as part of the mental discipline section is what's going to help you to be able to do this. The harsh speech that you have, those are the situations where you have the strongest cravings, desires, attachments. You can look at your relationships with the people who are closest to you, like your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children. Those are the people you struggle with the most because you have the deepest craving in those situations. And that's why you speak harsh and bitter. But these people that are outside, just your acquaintances and your friends, you can be kind and polite and talk nice and smooth with them because you don't have the craving, desire, attachments in those relationships. That's why the mind thinks that the problem's my family. They're the problem. No, it's your craving. You're attached in those situations. That's why that harsh speech is coming out. So you're going to need to improve your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. That's going to help to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And it's the mental discipline section that's going to help you to be able to do that. Then there's refraining from frivolous speech. Frivolous speech is like idle chatter. It's like kind of like unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech where someone's just talking. It's like yada, 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 yada. Yada, 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 yada. It's not really a conversation. They're like broadcasting to you. And you're sitting there like 15, 20 minutes. You're like, oh my gosh, when is this person going to be quiet? Right? So this is the frivolous speech where someone's just talking unpurposefully, unbeneficially. That's coming from craving, desire, attachment. You're not interested in being that person because over time, if you function like that, people are going to tune you out. They're going to be disinterested in listening to you. They're going to be disinterested in talking with you because you just talk so much. You're just broadcasting. So you like to talk a little bit and leave space for other people to talk as well so you can have a conversation. And that's going to help knock down your cravings, desires, attachments. It's going to help improve your moral conduct related to speech. And now you'll see that your relationships will improve. But then you'd like to take this a deeper level with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. The 5 factors of well-spoken speech are a deeper level teaching that integrates into the Eightfold Path. This is where the Buddha teaches you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. This is what you'd ultimately like to get to. That speaking at the proper time is to make sure that you're not interrupting people. If you're interrupting people, that means you have a craving. You can't wait your turn to talk. You're longing, yearning. You're trying to jump in there and talk before the person's even done speaking. Or the second aspect of this is that you make sure that your mind's prepared to talk. If you're angry and frustrated and bitter and hostile, that's not the proper time for you to be talking, right? You know that when your mind's angry and frustrated, that's all that comes out is your anger and frustration, right? So you need to make sure it's the proper time for you to talk, that your mind is prepared to talk. And then the third part of that is making sure that it's the proper time for the other person to speak. That if they're angry and bitter and hostile and harsh, they're not going to take in anything you have to say. So even if your mind's calm, but their mind's angry and frustrated, it's not the proper time to talk. right? So just don't even talk. Just, move on with your day and no need to have that conversation. Then you would like to make sure you're speaking the truth. That's what's up here, because that way you can be dependable, reliable, and trustworthy with the people around you. You can always speak the truth, right? And speaking the truth doesn't mean you say everything you know, right? So if your life partner comes in and says, hey, honey, what do you think of this dress? Do I look pretty? Do I look beautiful? If you're like, oh my gosh, you look horrible, their personal existence view is going to get triggered, right? And now they don't realize that their mind's causing their own discontentedness. So what that person is really looking for is they're looking for confidence. So you might say something like, honey, I just enjoy spending time with you. It really doesn't matter what you wear. Let's just go out and have a good time. Right? You don't need to sit there and tell them those kinds of things like, oh my gosh, where did you buy that dress? Are you really going to wear that color? Oh my gosh, where did you get that from? Right? You don't need to say all of that stuff. So speaking the truth doesn't mean you say everything you know. Sometimes people ask me this question. They say, what about if not in Nazi Germany, if a Jewish person ran into your house and was hiding under the bed and the Nazi soldier was at your door saying, where is Barbara? What do I say if I'm speaking the truth? Do I say there's Barbara right there under my bed? No, that's not what that means. It just means that you don't lie. If a Nazi soldier came to my house and says, where's Barbara? I would say, oh, you're looking for Barbara? Maybe we should look over in the bush. Maybe she's hiding around here somewhere. Let's go look for her. I will help you to look for her. And I will redirect that soldier to look somewhere else, right? I don't have to say Barbara's under my bed. I can say, oh, you're looking for Barbara? I'll help you look. Would you like to look over here by the bush? Right? I haven't lied about anything. I'm just redirecting the person to somewhere else. So if you're in a court of law, there's actually penalties for not speaking the truth and not telling everything that you know. So it's wise to tell everything you know in those situations. But in terms of your day-to-day life, you can speak the truth by still not saying everything you know. It's okay. You don't have to speak in situations where it's going to actually be harmful for somebody. So you need to look at that. Then you would like to speak gently. That's your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. In the Thai language, we have all kinds of words that help us to be able to make sure people know that we're speaking gently. But in other languages, you're going to need to look at that. The languages that you speak. Maybe in English, you might need to start using sir and ma'am, or please and thank you, and things like this to help people know that you're being gentle with them. Where in the Thai language, we have ka and kap, we have na kap, na ka, we have kap home, we have many different ways to refer to people. We even refer to people as if they are our family. So if we go to a store and there's maybe an older woman behind the counter, we might call her grandma, or we might call the taxi driver uncle or something like this, just like they're our family, right? So you're going to need to look at your different languages that you speak and find ways to be polite, kind, friendly, warm, and respectful in all these situations so you can be gentle. And more, that'll become easy for you as you're training your mind, but you're going to need to apply effort to bring up this gentleness in your speech. Then they're speaking beneficially. What that is more about the method and the mode of the way that you speak clear and concise, that you speak precise, right? If you just have rambling chit chat where you're just rambling all the time, this is not going to be very beneficial. But if we were all on a project team and we were going in to brief the boss, we like to be clear and concise. We like to speak beneficially. Whereas if we're just rambling all over the place, that person has to work a lot harder in order to understand what it is that we're sharing, and we're not going to have the same level of success. Because remember, the Buddha is teaching you cause and effect, or action and result. And this is what's going to help you have the most wholesome Dhamma in your day-to-day life, is by speaking beneficially. Then you would like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill. If you're speaking with the opposite of this, you would be speaking with inner hate. And if you're speaking with inner hate, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you, because that person is going to perceive that, and now you're going to experience unwholesome results or unwholesome Dhamma. So these are the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. But remember, you can't believe any of these teachings. You're not here to believe anything at all. You're examining and investigating the teachings. I just shared this with you intellectually so you can understand what is right speech. But now you need to reflect on this to be able to independently verify it for yourself. Look at these 5 factors. Look at a situation where the conversation didn't go well. It ended in a bad way. Were you speaking at the proper time? Were you speaking truth? Were you speaking gently? Were you speaking beneficially? Were you speaking with a mind of loving kindness? If the conversation didn't go well, either you and or the other person wasn't practicing these 5 factors. And there's where you can see that these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of them or not. And then just like these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of it or not, you have had helpful conversations. You've had wholesome conversations. Maybe at break, you just had some conversations with some of your classmates. You can look at this and you can see that you guys were practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech without even realizing it. Because you've had plenty of wholesome conversations in your life. You were speaking at the proper time. What you said was true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. That's why those conversations went well for you. So now what you do, now that you intellectually understand these and you reflect on them to be able to see like, oh my gosh, they're true, because when I don't use those, the conversations don't go well. And when I do use them, they do go well. So now that you reflect and you see that it's true, now you start practicing it. More and more, you bring this up to the forefront of your mind and you start practicing it closely. One of the things that I used to do is I used to look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in the morning, and then I would go outside and have all my meetings and do everything that I was going to do. And then at lunchtime, I would look at the 5 factors again, and I'd be like, oh, I wasn't speaking at the proper time. I kept interrupting those people. I need to really work on that. Or, oh, I didn't speak gentle. Right? I need to improve that. Or then maybe I'd get to the end of my day and I'd look at them and I'm like, wow, I'm doing really good with this gentle speech, right? So you're going to need to tweak this. And that's what these posters are for. And I have it on my phone as well that I can send it to you. It's on our website as well, where you can have it and you can just refresh your memory, just 1 minute or 2 minutes, and you can keep it in the forefront of your mind so that way you can actively be practicing this. And as you bring your practice up more and more to this, you'll see all your relationships will really improve. This is the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And what we're talking about here is practicing something that we refer to in Thai as barami. This is a Thai word, barami. What this means is the one who people listen to. If you have barami, that means you're the one who people listen to. And in Thai villages, there's usually elders in the village that everybody knows they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. And they're very successful in life. And when I say successful, I don't mean necessarily financially successful, because that's usually what people think about when I say they are successful in life. Right away, you think rich, right? But that's not the case. Anybody can go out and make money. When I say somebody is successful, I mean that they have harmonious relationships. That's what it means to be successful, is when you have harmonious relationships all around you, you are now successful. So these elders in the village that have very successful relationships, people know that they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to because they speak wisely. And now they're influential in their community. They can help many people because people come to them and ask them for help. So if you're interested in being influential and helpful to the people around you, whether it's your family or your coworkers or anybody else like that, you're going to need to establish barami, where you're the one who people listen to. And this is going to take multiple months and years for you to speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech with the people around you. And as you do that, more and more, you will establish barami. You will be the one who people listen to. Okay? So here we call this right speech, right? Because that's what was going on during the lifetime of the Buddha, is speech. But we might think about this as right communication, because there's a whole lot more ways that we speak and communicate than just spoken words. We have social media, email, text messages, voicemails. You would like all your speech to be with right speech. All your communication needs to be with these 5 factors. Because, for example, if I went into a job interview and I knocked it out of the park with my speech and they were like, oh my gosh, I would like to hire this guy immediately, right? Now they go look at my social media, and my social media has all this bitterness and harshness and hostility. You're probably not going to get the job, right? So you would like all of your communication to be with these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and that's what's going to improve your relationships. So for example, if you're really angry and bitter and hostile and harsh, and you run over to your computer and you're pounding on the keyboard to send an email, that's not the proper time to talk. That's not the proper time to communicate, right? So if you're going to pound on your keyboard, okay, go ahead and do that, but then hit back to you, right? So if you hit save, you can come back a few years or a few hours later or a few days later, and you can look at it and you can be like, maybe I'm not going to send that after all, right? So this is what it means to practice these teachings, is that you're now making decisions through these natural laws, and that's what will produce the wholesome results for you. So while you're learning all of this, there's stuff in the book in chapter 5, if you have a version of this book, where I go into detail about each of these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because this is a very easy way that you can cause harm through your communication. And I go into detail about all of these. But I also give you kind of a shorthand way to think about this, which is be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. This isn't what's going to get you to enlightenment. You need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and you need to practice those. And you need to know to not lie, have slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. You need to know that. But in the next few months, as you're building your practice up to this, if you can remember to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, this will be really helpful for you. Because if you're on the phone with your mom, and you're in the middle of a conversation and you start noticing that you're starting to be frustrated, you can't be like, hey, Mom, can you hold on a second? I'm getting really frustrated here. I know this is in chapter 5 somewhere. I need to find these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. I know David was talking about them in class. What are they again? Right? You're not going to have time to do that. So in the meantime, when you're in a situation where you can't remember the 5 factors of well-spoken speech over the next couple months while you're learning this, just remember, polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. This is going to help you in those situations. And you'll find more details in the book, because I go into a lot of detail about this, because this is a way that you could potentially cause a lot of harm. Then you need to practice right action. Here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So the Buddha is giving you 3 things that are very impactful about your bodily actions and the way you interact in the world with others. Because as long as you're causing harm through your bodily actions, this harm is going to come back to you. He's not giving you an exhaustive list. He's just giving you 3 really big, impactful ones. Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. But if you did that, you know that's wrong action, because you're causing harm to others. And now that person's probably going to punch you back. That's your karma. That's the results of your decisions. Or they might pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family might come attack you, right? That's the results of your decisions. That's the cause and effect. So you're going to need to apply this to all situations. Notice the Buddha doesn't say, it would be unwise to walk through the aisle of an airplane and drag your suitcase, bumping into people's feet and running over their feet. He didn't say that, because airplanes didn't even exist, right? But if you understand this factor of the Eightfold Path, that you're not interested in causing harm through your bodily actions, then you know that that would be unwise. So the Buddha is giving you 3 really impactful ones, and then you need to apply it in all parts of your life. He's not going to give you an exhaustive list. So these here, you're going to get more information on them tomorrow when I teach the 5 precepts, because here he's just giving you kind of like a summary of these. But when he teaches the 5 precepts, he goes into detail about this, in a lot more detail, much more illuminating language. So for example, here, refraining from sexual misconduct, your mind's like, well, what is sexual misconduct, right? He explains it in the 5 precepts. He gives you a lot of details. He talks about having sex with minors. He talks about raping people, having sex without consent. He talks about things of that nature, having sex outside of your existing relationships. We're going to talk about all of this tomorrow. But it's important at this point, I think, to make sure you know that the Buddha did not teach that same gender relationships would be harmful. He was aware of them because you can see that he's essentially talking about it in his teachings, but he never describes it as sexual misconduct, because two loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other, they're not causing any harm. If it's a male and a female, or male and female, they're not actually causing any harm. And if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you understand that it's impossible for every male to be interested in having sex with a female, or every female to be interested in having sex with a male. That is impossible. Ever since the beginning of humanity, there's been people who have sex with the opposite gender, but there's also been people who have sex with the same gender. That is impermanence. And that's how wise this individual was, that 2,500 years ago, he understood that same gender relationships don't cause harm to other people. So if you or somebody you know has a same gender relationship, you're not causing any harm to anybody. But other people, they might get angry because they have a craving for everybody to have sex with the opposite gender. That's their craving for permanence. You're not causing any harm in that situation. So we're going to go into more detail about this tomorrow, but I just would like to give you a heads up that this doesn't include same-gender relationships. Okay? Then the Buddha does teach some other things like substances that cause heedlessness and gambling, but he never gives you an exhaustive list. So you're going to need to apply this one in many different situations and scenarios. Then there's right livelihood. Here's the words of the Buddha. He says, "In what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood." Here he's just saying something very general and very broad, because his teachings on right livelihood are actually in other parts of his teachings, and they integrate into the Eightfold Path like I shared with you. So I'm going to teach you what's called the first fold of purification about your livelihood. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. If you choose to sustain your life on causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha is giving you 5 livelihoods here, or 5 types of livelihoods that would cause harm to others. And if you choose to practice these, then there's going to be harm that comes back to you. So he talks about business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, that these are all sustaining your life off of causing harm to others. And you would like to be sure that you're not causing harm to others in the way that you sustain your life, because otherwise this harm is going to come back to you. But remember, it's not about belief. You need to independently verify that this is a natural law. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to show you how to do this. Like here where he says substances that cause heedlessness, that would be wrong livelihood. Okay, so let's just say I was standing on the street corner selling crystal methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine into the community. Okay, this is substances that cause heedlessness. I am now sustaining my life off of causing harm to others. And now standing on that street corner, harm is going to come to me. I can easily get beat up. I can get robbed. I can get murdered. The police can arrest me. I can get addicted to these substances myself. This is all the harm that's coming to me, because now I'm causing harm by selling the substance into the community. Those people are going out and maybe selling their bodies or stealing themselves in order to bring me money. And now I'm causing harm in the community, and that's why harm is coming to me. So this is the natural law of karma, which I just described something like illicit drugs, right? In most places in the world, it's illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine and heroin and cocaine, but not everywhere. There's some places that it's not illegal. This particular natural law that we're talking about has nothing to do with the human laws. The human laws are imperfect. They're created by human beings, so therefore human beings are going to be prone to error. So that means that they're imperfect. They can never be created and administered equally and fairly amongst all people. We should always aspire for them to be applied equally to all people, but we just need to know that because human beings, that there's going to be errors involved. But the natural law of karma doesn't have any errors, that it will experience, you will experience the results of your decisions. So while I just gave you an example here with someone standing on the street corner and selling illicit drugs, I'll give you another example so you can see this natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level. Let's just say that I chose to be a cashier at a liquor store. The government isn't going to arrest me for that, right? They're like, hey, you'd like to be a cashier at that liquor store? Go ahead. We're not going to arrest you for that. That's a human law. right? But the natural law of karma, if you understand the natural law of karma, you might realize that it's unwise to work in that location, because those are the places that get robbed. People come in with guns and knives, right? You might actually get beat up or murdered in that situation. At the very least, you're going to be dealing with intoxicated clientele who are going to be coming in from time to time. And now you got to deal with that. So how could you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you're constantly having to deal with intoxicated people, right? So this natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level than the human laws. The human laws are imperfect, but if you understand the natural law of karma, you can navigate this world with ease. So this is the types of livelihoods that the Buddha is describing to you that would be unwise for you to be able to conduct these. And you can look at these yourself and figure out for yourself whether or not these livelihoods are something that you are doing or you will be doing or something like that. And you can make the choices for yourself of what you would like to do. The Buddha is just giving you the wisdom to be able to see the natural law of karma, but whether you choose to do these things or not, it's a choice for you to make. But you will receive the results of whatever decisions that you make. Then he explains to you how to perform your livelihood, because he's also teaching you how to have success in your livelihood so your career can keep growing more and more. So here he's talking about things that would hinder you from success in your livelihood. He's talking about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. So I'll explain to you guys what these are. So let's just say I was a politician. Let's just say I was the mayor of a town. And there's no harm in being the mayor of a town, right? That's not one of those 5 livelihoods we just talked about. But if I was scheming and I was corrupt in this job, now I'm causing harm. 10 years, 15 years into my career, people find out about this, and now they're not going to be interested in reelecting me, right? So scheming is going to produce unwholesome results in your livelihood. Flattery is giving insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. Have you ever been to a store where you walk in and they're like, oh my gosh, that shirt looks so good on you. It brings out the colors of your eyes. You are so handsome. You are so beautiful. You know, I have these earrings over here that would go really good with your shirt. Would you like to come take a look? Right? This is just giving insincere comments in order to get people to buy things from you. And if you've ever experienced that, you're probably like, ugh. You don't even feel comfortable going into the store. It's kind of like, I would like to get out of here, right? So if you are flattering people, they're going to be able to see through that. And now you're not going to be successful in building up your wholesome karma to be successful in your career. Hinting is not being clear and concise in your work. So if we were all on a work project, on a team together, and we went into the boss and we're very clear and concise about what it is that we're talking about, we're going to have much more success. Whereas if we're just hinting, where it's kind of like, yeah, I did my work this week, but I'm not sure what Barbara did. I noticed that she was taking an extra long lunch, right? Like this is kind of like hinting around, not being clear, but you're also going into belittling too. Belittling is to degrade or diminish other people, like your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, or your competition. If you're belittling people, you're pushing them down in order to try to make yourself look good. And sometimes people think this is what you should do, like with your business competition, that if I make them look bad, then they'll buy something from me. But it actually makes you look bad when you're actually belittling people. So you're not interested in belittling your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, or your competition. If someone asks you a question about your competition, one of the best things you can do is say, I'm not really sure what they do 100%. I don't work there, but I can tell you what I can offer you. This is what I can help you with. And now you share that with them, right? So you're not interested in belittling anyone in your livelihood. What pursuing gain with gain is this is like just going to a place for a paycheck, that you really don't care about the product or service that you're involved in. You're just showing up for the paycheck. If you've ever had that kind of job, then you probably felt very dull, very bored, very mundane going to work each day. You might have been excited at the beginning because you were getting all this new money, but then over time, is that craving extinguished? then your mind experienced all this boredom and loneliness, and maybe even lack of motivation and enthusiasm and ambition going to work each day. So the Buddha teaches you to select a livelihood that you thoroughly enjoy, that you have enthusiasm and ambition with. Because if you are just showing up for the paycheck, then that's the only motivator is the money, and you don't really feel great about the product or service that you're offering. You would like to get to the point where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing, that you can't imagine doing anything else. You enjoy it so much, that you enjoy this work so much that it doesn't even feel like work, that even if you did get paid for it, you would still do it. That's how much you enjoy it. You might actually find people like that here in Thailand. You'll see people have a big old smile on their face as they are doing their work, right? Because they just thoroughly enjoy the work that they're doing. In fact, you might go out on the street and see somebody standing on the street corner who's selling mango and sticky rice. And maybe this lady woke up this morning and she went out in her mango grove and she selected each one of the mangoes off the tree. She brushed them off and cleaned them up, put them in a basket. She brought them to the market, and she's standing there with a big old smile on her face, slicing this mango. And then she puts it on top of the sticky rice, pours some coconut milk on top of that, and she hands it to you with a big smile, and she collects her 40 baht. She can't imagine doing anything else in the world but serving you that mango and sticky rice. And she just enjoys it so much that even if she didn't get paid for it, she would still do it. That's how much she enjoys it. Well, what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to find your mango and sticky rice. What is your mango and sticky rice that you can't imagine doing anything else other than this, that you enjoy it so much that it's not about the money, it's that you just thoroughly enjoy this particular thing. You might not be in that livelihood right now, but that's what you can get to, right? That you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. Because if you're dragging yourself to work each day, that means that you're not in a right livelihood. And that means that you're not going to have peace and joy permanently, that you can only be peaceful and joyful when you're on vacation. And then when you have to go back to your life, it feels miserable, right? So you would like to get to the point where you thoroughly enjoy all aspects of your life, including your work. So if you're not in that place right now, that's something that you can get to. And what I've shared with you here is what's called the first fold of purification. There's a second fold of purification that the Buddha teaches. It's in volume 12, chapter 14. If you're in between jobs, or if you're in a job that you don't particularly care for and you're looking to find something new, you might decide to read that chapter. It's volume 12, chapter 14. You can find the detailed teachings of the first and second fold of purification for your livelihood. So this is right livelihood, getting to the point where you have enthusiasm and ambition and you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so now just to summarize that, and I'll open up to questions, is there's right speech, which is not causing harm through all your verbal conduct, but also remembering that we can think of this as right communication, that it's eliminating any harm through your verbal, text, chat, post, emails. All of this should be harmless, right? Then there's right action, that you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions, that all your bodily actions are harmless, where you're not causing harm to people's material possessions, to their physical body or their reputation. You're not interested in causing any harm. And then you're not causing harm in your livelihood through the decisions of how you sustain your life, that you're paying attention to ensure that you're not practicing business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness and poisons, but then also you eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain. You're going to need to eliminate all of that. And that's where you'll see that you'll be more and more successful in your livelihood. And then you'll get to the point more and more where you have enthusiasm and ambition and motivation in your livelihood. So do you guys have any questions on the moral conduct section? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, David. This been a big question for me in the last how many years? What career to pursue that gives me that what you explained. I've tried different tools to find out what it is. So my question is, you hear now everyone comes with a gift in this world, or find your purpose. So can you say something to that? Is there such a thing that we come here in this world, in this human experience, a particular gift, particular purpose that we have to fulfill, that we have to find and then follow that? Or how does it work?
Yeah, this is part of the mind's lack of wisdom. And it's also the ego thinking that I have a purpose, I have a gift, all of this stuff. In fact, what it is that you have things that you will develop an interest in based on your goals and objectives. But the thing is that your pollution of mind, the sensual desire, the cravings, desires, attachments, will take you away from those things that you truly enjoy doing. And I'll give you an example from my life so that you can understand what I'm talking about here, because it's the next part of the Eightfold Path that's actually going to help you to get to a right livelihood. You're not going to be able to implement any of this moral conduct until you're learning more and more about the mental discipline. I shouldn't say you can't implement it. I'll say that the mental discipline section is going to help you to make it easier to implement the moral conduct. Because I'll give you this example, is that when I was going through college, I took a career class, my very first semester, because I was interested to know what career I would like to do. And I took this whole semester, we were planning and planning and planning. And at the end of the semester, I came up with, I was interested in either being a social worker or a police officer. Those were the two things that I was interested in, because I was interested in helping people. That's what I learned about myself, that I enjoyed helping people. Well, then I started taking classes in psychology and sociology. I took some computer classes and different things like this. And the more I learned about computers, this was in the early 90s, I was like, wow, this is the way to make lots of money, because I grew up poor and I was like, I want money, right? So even though I figured out that I enjoyed helping people, my craving, desire, attachment for money took me down that path. So I went to school and I learned computers, and I worked in that field for 7.5 years. And sure, I made plenty of money, but ultimately by the end of that, my feelings were unmotivated. And then ultimately I started my own business and started doing that. But ultimately what I circled back to is what I initially was interested in, which was helping people, because that's what I'm doing now, right? But my life went all this other trajectory, and I could tell you all the different jobs that I had. It wasn't just those couple that I was talking about, but this was all motivated by craving, desire, attachment, by the pollution in the mind, because my mind was being pulled in this direction. So when you use the mental discipline section to reduce and eliminate your pollutions of mind, you will be able to see what it is that you truly are interested in doing in this world. It's not a given purpose. It's not a gift that somebody is giving you. It's something that you figure out based on what it is that you enjoy about the world. But it's very hard for you to see that when the mind has all this pollution. So you got to get rid of all this pollution to then be able to see what is it that I should really be doing. And I didn't figure this out until I was 44 years old. It takes time to figure out what is it that you'd really like to be doing. But it's not a given purpose or a gift. It's something that you acquire. So this wisdom that I share with you guys is something that I acquired, but I truly enjoy it because I grew up with such a difficult and turbulent life, and I always aspired for peacefulness, and I never knew how to do that. And once I learned how to do it, then I was interested in sharing that. But it was something I needed to acquire. It wasn't a given purpose or a gift or anything like that. So the more you practice the mental discipline section, you'll knock down the pollution, and then you'll be able to see what is it that you truly like to do. And part of that process is doing a bunch of things and trying a bunch of things. And then you'll kind of see what it is that works best for you. And since you're in Germany, I actually heard about something from Germany. They have those internships where you can go around. You probably know about this, right? Where you can go around and work in different companies for like 2 weeks or 4 weeks or what have you. And you can just try it out, right? I think that's such a great idea that the German government has, where you can go around and try all these different things. And then you can kind of see what it is that you like about them or you don't like. And now this gives you more of a perspective of deciding what it is you'd like to pursue. Because part of exploring this is to be able to try lots of different things. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move into this mental discipline section, because if it wasn't for the mental discipline section, it would be very challenging to actually implement the moral conduct, because it's one thing to share with you that it's unwise to use harsh speech, but but it's a whole nother thing for you to have the mental discipline to not use harsh speech, right? So the mental discipline section is going to actually help you to implement the moral conduct section. And all of it is built on the wisdom section. So now I'll share with you guys the mental discipline section. This is called right effort. The Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, and exerts his mind and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So he's talking about 4 things here. And I'm going to break it down here on this next slide so you can see what he's talking about. He's talking about applying the effort to prevent unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort. There are certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. They're really far outside your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to never allow those things to come into your mind. An example of that might be killing another human being. That's probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. You have no interest in killing another human being. And the Buddha is saying those types of things that are not currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to not allow those unwholesome things to come into your mind. Then there's abandoned unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. There are certain unwholesome mental states that are currently in your mind right now. Otherwise, you'd already be enlightened. So those unwholesome mental states that are in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those out of your mind. An example might be if you're in an existing relationship and you have a craving for sex outside of that relationship, that's going to cause harm in your relationship. And if you see that unwholesome quality coming up in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. Or anger, frustration, and irritation. That's an unwholesome mental state. When you're seeing that come up in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to cut that off and eliminate it out of the mind. The third one here is produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring in wholesome mental states. There are certain wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into the mind in order to move it to this enlightened mental state. An example might be generosity. Maybe you find it really hard to share with other people. Some people might call that being selfish, that you don't like to share with other people. Because we're all taught to share when we're growing up as kids. We're just not taught why. Generosity actually helps train your mind to let go. That's the reason why the Buddha teaches generosity. But if you find it hard to share with people, that's a quality that you're going to need to bring into your mind. It's a wholesome quality, and you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into your mind. Or say something like compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. On one side of this, somebody could be indifferent, where they're like, I don't care if someone got in that motorbike accident. It's not my friend. It's not my family. I don't care. I don't care that that person's homeless. I don't care that they don't have food. It doesn't bother me at all, right? And this could be indifference. But on the other side of that, compassion could be worry and anxiety. Oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. What are they going to do? They're not going to be able to eat. Oh my gosh, right? This is the worry and anxiety. So the Buddha is teaching you to bring your mind to the middle where you have compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. And if you don't have that in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into your mind. So any wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. Then there's the fourth one. Maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away. and work to increase their growth in the mind. Because right now, there are certain wholesome mental states that are in your mind, but they may not have been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So, for example, like your loving kindness, you probably have loving kindness in your mind, which is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards others. But it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development, because in some situations, you might be bitter and hostile and harsh to people. And that's because you haven't yet brought it into your mind fully, where you need to apply the effort to arise this loving kindness in the mind, where you've brought it to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So wherever you see that your mind isn't being loving and kind, you're going to need to apply the effort to rise this up in your mind so that it can now be brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Here's another example, like sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So let's just say that someone comes to you and says, hey, by the way, I'm thinking of going to Thailand. And you're like, oh, you're going to go to Thailand? I was in Thailand. It's a great place. It's a wonderful place. You're going to have a blast. You're going to have a great time. Oh, by the way, there's this lady on the corner that sells mango and sticky rice. You're really going to enjoy her food if you happen to see her, right? So you might have joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it, because you have sympathetic joy in your mind. But now let's just say you're at work and a new position opens up and you apply for that position. It's a new title, new office, new salary, new responsibilities. But some of your other coworkers apply too, but they get the job instead of you. Now you might notice this jealousy or envy coming into the mind, because that's the opposite of sympathetic joy, is jealousy or envy. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to rise that up in the mind so it's permeating at all times. And it's going to be challenging for you, especially when that person is walking around the office gloating about how they got this new job and they're showing off with all their conceit. You're going to have to arise that sympathetic joy and to be like, hey, I'm really pleased for you. That's wonderful. Even though you didn't get the job, you can be pleased for them, right? This is joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So this is right effort, that you apply the effort to prevent unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind. You apply the effort to eliminate unwholesome mental states that are currently in your mind. You apply the effort to bring in wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind. And you apply effort to arise, maintain, fully permeate in your mind wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. The way I described this to my son when I was teaching him when he was really young is I would say, kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome, right? You'd like to apply the effort to do that. So you wouldn't be able to practice this right effort without the next step. Okay. I just gave you examples here that are just examples to help you understand right effort. But what is wholesome or unwholesome that's in your mind? That's what you're going to need to figure out. And this next step is what's going to help you to be able to do that. This next step is called right mindfulness. This is what's going to help you to observe your mind and see what's going on in your mind. So you wouldn't be able to practice right effort without this one. So I'll read it to you and then I'll teach it to you. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about four things here. Body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. These are referred to as the four foundations of mindfulness. But before we talk about those, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. Mindfulness in general is just having awareness of the mind. You would like to start working on having awareness of the mind, where you're aware of your thoughts and ideas and feelings and the various things that are going on in your mind. Sometimes people use this word mindfulness in day-to-day conversations that isn't the same way that the Buddha used it. So if they would like to use it in those other ways, that's up to them. But more and more, you would like to use it in the way that the Buddha is using it, which is awareness of mind. Some people might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's not what the Buddha is talking about, right? They're just replacing the word careful with mindful, right? So you would like to understand what mindfulness means is awareness of the mind. Because all too often in the unenlightened state, we don't have awareness of what's going on in our mind. If you're like me, when I was first in life, I was plowing through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest. I didn't know what was going on. I was just plowing through the forest. And I looked behind me and I saw the trees knocked down. I was like, who knocked down all those trees? I started smelling smoke. I was like, who lit the fire? Right? And then when you learn right view, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm the one who did that. Right? And so you need to be able to have mindfulness where you realize that it's your own mind that's causing all of these things, that you have this awareness of mind, what's going on in your own mind. But then as you work with that for a while, you like to go deeper and start to understand what are the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are essentially helping you to see the life cycle that discontentedness takes so that then you can apply right effort. What the Buddha is teaching you here is that there's going to be bodily sensations that you're going to notice before your mind becomes discontent with a feeling. Right now, you may or may not be aware of these. If you can think about a time when you've been angry, you might have noticed like tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the bodily sensations associated with your mind about to experience anger or frustration, right? It's not angry and frustrated yet. It's like an early warning system that's alerting you that, hey, you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. And what the Buddha teaches you to do is apply right effort and cut that off and let it go at the bodily sensations. It hasn't become a feeling yet. So you're not suppressing your feelings or repressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it actually becomes a feeling. So the bodily sensations are your mind saying, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. And you're like, nope, not going to let you do that. Right? And you're training your mind to not form that conditioned feeling. It's kind of like if you were going to take a boat from the UK to Canada, right? If you're out in the middle of the ocean, you'd like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets into the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get it out. So the same thing is true is if you allow your mind to become angry, now you've got a real problem to deal with. You've got to get it out. But if you can prevent it from ever coming into the mind, you've just preserved your peacefulness. You've protected the mind. So the Buddha is teaching you that when you notice those bodily sensations, cut off and let go. Redirect the mind to something else. Then there's the feelings, because if you miss it as a bodily sensation, it's going to become a feeling where now the mind's angry. Now the mind's frustrated or agitated or annoyed or feeling guilt or shame or fear. If you missed it as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. That's the next best option. If you miss it as a feeling, it's going to affect the condition of the mind. Have you ever been irritable or grumpy for like a few hours or a few days or like a week or two? Have you ever experienced that? Of course you have, right? We all have. Because you didn't understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You had some type of contact through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, or the mind itself. Your mind had these bodily sensations that you didn't notice, and you didn't know to cut that off and let it go. Then your mind formed the feeling. Now you're grumpy or irritable or angry or frustrated. And now you didn't cut it off as a feeling, so it affects the condition of your mind. For a few hours, a few days, a week or two, you're grumpy or irritable. So you'd like to be aware of that and cut that off and let it go. Because if you don't, it's going to feed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in your mind. And in this example is ill will. All those 10 fetters that I taught you yesterday, those are all mental objects. So ill will is a mental object. It's a deeply rooted container in the mind. None of us were born with ill will. We didn't have ill will. We didn't have conceit and arrogance when we were first born. That was formed over time. So we didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, but that's what was formed over time. We didn't go into the hospital with conceit, right? We didn't go into the nursery like, my gloves are better than your gloves. My crib is better than your crib. My hat is better than your hat, right? That's something that we formed over time because of our cravings, desires, attachments. So this deeply rooted containers of those 10 pollutions that are in the mind, you need to uproot them and get them out of the mind. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to put a blockade at the bodily sensations, to no longer allow your mind to form the conditioned feeling, so you can cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. But then you're using the entire path to uproot those mental objects and purify the mind of the mental objects. It's like taking a jackhammer to these mental objects and uprooting them and purifying them out of the mind. And that's what's going to produce the peace and the joy, the enlightened mental state. So this is the bodily sensations, or the early warning system, where you're cutting off and letting go at the bodily sensations. But your mind's not going to be able to do this from the beginning, because you're going to need the next step in order to be able to help you to develop this mindfulness and this ability to be able to cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. It is sometimes going to become a feeling. You're going to experience conditioned feelings between now and enlightenment. But when you notice those, cut those off and let those go. Because if you don't, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. And if you didn't catch it as a bodily sensation or feeling, cut it off at the condition of your mind, applying right effort to eliminate that out of the mind. And then more and more, you can learn about the mental objects and uproot those and eliminate those out of the mind. So let me explain to you guys how this looks in a day-to-day scenario. Let's just say I'm sitting on the sofa and I'm watching the news. And as I'm watching the news, you're taking in this content through your eyes and your ears, and it's triggering one of your cravings. And you're noticing the bodily sensations of frustration and anger. You're noticing this tingling, this tightening in the chest, this tightening in the throat, this heat in the face, this pressure in the skull. Well, don't just sit there and let the mind form the feeling. Instead, redirect the mind, apply right effort, turn off the news, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, go to the bathroom and wash your hands. Let go. Don't allow your mind to form the conditioned feeling. So you might need to do that for several months with something like the news until your mind can watch the news and be completely peaceful. But this is the way it looks. As you cut off and let go, you redirect the mind to something else, right? That's what's going to allow you to gain control and discipline over the mind. But you need the mindfulness to be able to see that that frustration is starting to arise. And then you need the right effort to redirect the mind in another direction. So now, in order to develop this mindfulness, you're going to need this next step of right concentration. This is the Buddha describing something called the jhanas. I'm not going to read this to you in this class. I will in others. I'm going to teach you how to practice right concentration. What the Buddha is teaching you here is he's teaching you the results of having put together the entire Eightfold Path, that this is what you're going to start experiencing. These are 4 preliminary phases that the mind goes through on your way to enlightenment. These are enhanced qualities of mind. I'll just give you one example. When you get to the second jhana, which is a preliminary phase that your mind will go to on the way to its first stage of enlightenment, you're going to experience what's called oneness of mind, or unification of the mind. Prior to the second jhana, you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. And your conscious mind is polluted, but your subconscious mind is even more polluted. If you've ever been around a group of friends before and you blurted something out, and you were like, where did that come from? Like, I don't think that way. That was really racist. Why did I say that? That's your subconscious mind that threw something up into your conscious mind, and then you just blurted it out. So in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to have full awareness of your entire mind so you can purify the entire mind. So if you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, you're not aware of your subconscious mind. You're only aware of your conscious mind. But by the time you get to the second jhana, you will have oneness of mind, or unification of mind, where you can actually see your entire mind. There's no longer a subconscious mind by the time you get to the second jhana. Okay, so this is like enhanced benefits and enhanced qualities that you're going to start experiencing after you put together all of the Eightfold Path. And you're going to need to learn this at a certain point, but in a foundational class like this, More so what you're interested in is, how do I practice right concentration? And the Buddha teaches that in another part of his teachings. He describes that right concentration is to practice breathing mindfulness meditation and all the other meditations, and practice singleness of mind. So in order to practice right concentration, you're going to need to develop a breathing mindfulness meditation practice and a loving kindness meditation practice. The breathing mindfulness meditation is where you're focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off, letting it go, and bringing the mind back to the breath. So you're developing the wholesome quality of concentration, and you're developing mindfulness. When the mind moves off the breath, you notice that. That's your mindfulness. And now you're training your mind to let go. You're building this internal mechanism in your mind to be able to let go. So that's going to help you apply right mindfulness and right effort. So that's why you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation. And we're going to talk about this in more detail this afternoon, where I'm going to teach you all the ins and outs of breathing mindfulness meditation and how it fits into the Eightfold Path. But just so you know, this is part of right concentration. And then there's loving kindness meditation, which is going to eliminate your anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, even to the point of the slightest dislike. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have the slightest dislike towards other beings. And it's this loving kindness meditation that's going to help you to do that. So you would like to build this up to 2 to 3 sessions of 30 minutes of meditation. And I'll explain to you more this afternoon. Then there's the practice of singleness of mind. This is a practice where you're just doing one thing at a time. The unenlightened mind will attempt to do multiple things at a time. You might have even been taught to multitask. You might have heard this in the workforce. You're not actually multitasking. Your mind actually physically cannot multitask. It can only do one thing at a time, but you might have been taught to multitask. What the mind's doing is it's rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. So you might be doing one thing for 3 to 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to something else for 3 to 4 or 5 or 10 seconds, and you're rapidly cycling to something else. So if you're talking on your phone to your mom, you're watching the TV, and you're eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all 3 of these things at one time. You're talking to your mom a little bit, you're watching TV a little bit, and you're eating your sandwich a little bit. That's why at the end of the conversation, you can't even remember what it was that you guys talked about. Or you might have stumbled over your words, or you might have said something that you wish you wouldn't have said, or the conversation went really long when it could have just been a really short, easy conversation. So you're not actually being more productive in this situation, because now you got to go back and clean this up. You got to go to mom and be like, Mom, I'm so sorry. I know that you wanted me to do something for you, but I completely forgot what that was. Can you tell me what that was? Right? Or Mom, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that to you. I was really unwise to say those things to you. So you're actually spending more time on the call, and you got to go follow up afterwards, where if you just do one thing at a time, you'll actually get more benefit, because you didn't really benefit from the TV program, and you didn't really benefit from the sandwich either. So if you're trying to do multiple things at one time, your mind's not actually doing all those things at one time. You just need to be able to do one thing at a time, right? So the Buddha teaches you to practice singleness of mind. If you get to the end of your day and you go home and you're really stressed and having anxiety and you can't calm down, that's because at work you're racing around the racetrack. It's like a horse. If you've ever been to a racetrack where horses race around a racetrack, they will race around the racetrack, but when they go to the barn, they can't calm down. They're all hyped up because their mind is so used to running around the racetrack. So if you're doing that for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, or you're running around the racetrack, when you go home, you'll find it very hard to relax and just be chilled and be calm, right? So you're interested in just doing one thing at a time. The way that I think about this is that if you had a piece of wood and a steel rod and you were grinding it back and forth, initially it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a nice groove going. And then when it pops out, you're going to know that it's popped out and you're going to be able to bring it back. But now if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a deep enough groove that it's never going to pop out. By the time you're practicing right concentration, you will be focused all the time. You have concentration all the time. So even if you've been told that you have ADHD or ADD or any of these other things, it's just that your mind is untrained. That's all it is. You haven't trained your mind to be focused and concentrated. So what you would like to do is whenever you see your mind wandering, is you would like to, with your mindfulness, notice that it's not in the present moment, and now cut that off and let it go and come back. So say, for example, you're washing dishes and your mind is wandering and you're thinking about something else. You'd like to cut that off and let it go and come back to washing the dishes. Because if you're not focused on washing the dishes, you could easily cut your hand and now you're going to end up in the emergency room getting stitches sewn in your hand. Or say you're in a business meeting and your boss is talking and you're thinking about your trip to Thailand and you just can't wait to get to Thailand. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be out of here in 3 months. I can't imagine continuing to be here. I'm going to be gone. I can't wait to get out of here, right? That's your mind wandering. You're not practicing singleness of mind. You need to cut that off and let it go and be like, no, I'm right here in the business meeting. This is where I need to apply my effort. Or say you're listening to a teacher speak and teach you the teachings of the Buddha. And now you're thinking about lunch. Maybe you're even looking at your time and you're like, oh my gosh, it's 11 minutes after 12. He said we were going to lunch at 12 o'clock. I want my mango and sticky rice. Where's that mango and sticky rice and that pad thai and kapow and all those other great dishes that they make? Come on, we got to go. Like, what's he talking about? Right? Where you see your mind doing that, you like, nope, this is where I am right now. I'm listening to this teacher and I need to focus my mind on this. So you'll get that steel rod going and you get that deeper and deeper groove, and now it won't pop out. Eventually you'll just be able to be focused and concentrated all the time. So this is what's going to help you to now practice right mindfulness and right effort. So this is the right concentration. So here's a summary of what we were just talking about. Right effort is taking initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities. So you're applying the effort to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. Then you've got right mindfulness, which is awareness of the mind, right? You just have that general awareness of mind, and more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. You're going to need to develop this over time using the right concentration, practicing meditation, and practicing singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time until you start experiencing the jhanas. Once you start experiencing the jhanas, the mind's going to be more and more practicing these qualities all the time. And then you start focusing on the 10 fetters more closely at that point. But here's the Eightfold Path with the mental discipline: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So any questions here? Once I start talking about lunch, there's usually not questions. All right. So this is the Eightfold Path. There's the wisdom section, which is what I walked you guys through, the moral conduct section, and then there's the mental discipline section. All of this together, you're going to need to be able to learn it multiple times. As you guys seen, there's students that are kind of coming and going. These are some students that have studied with me in the past, and they're coming in to get refreshers. So you're going to need to refresh your memory on this. You can't learn it just once and then implement it perfectly. You're going to need to gradually tweak this in your life more and more closely. But remember, it's like that speaker system. You're tweaking the dials, getting a better quality sound out of the speakers. It's the same thing with your mind. As you tweak this and you practice this closer and closer, you're going to get a better and better performing mind as you go forward in life. This is the path to enlightenment. You need this as a foundation, and all the other teachings of the Buddha plug into it. As you see, it's very comprehensive, but you can learn it and get to the point where you know it like the back of your hand. So oftentimes people take the first 3 to 6 months and they just focus on this. Even though you're going to learn lots of other things about the path to enlightenment in these various courses, you just really need to focus some attention on this and commit it to your memory so you understand it. Not only what it is, but how to practice it as well. So if you need help with that, you can do that. You can study it on your own, and then you can come to me. Sometimes students will kind of teach it to me so that they can confirm that they actually know it. So if you ever would like to do that, you can do that, where you study it yourself first, and then you sit down with me and almost teach it to me. And then that way I can give you the help that you need. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break here. It's basically 12:15. is it possible for us to have an hour and 15-minute lunch break today so we come back at 1:30? You guys okay? Anybody angry? Nobody's angry? No? See? You can verify the Four Noble Truths. If you had a craving for an hour and a half lunch break, like I mentioned, you'd be angry right now. But because you don't have a craving, desire, attachment, your mind's peaceful and it's joyful, right? You're just like, yeah, there's impermanence. Some days we're going to have an hour and a half. Some days we're going to have an hour and 15. That's normal. That's impermanence, right? So enjoy your lunch, and I'll see you guys in an hour and 15 minutes, okay? Thank you so much for your questions, okay?